So this is 15:22. So we're done with the song and we're done with the Red Sea. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. So now we're starting to encounter the problem of the desert instead of the problem of the tyranny. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah, which I presume indicates bitter.
Right.
And the people murmured against Moses. As you said, this didn't take very long, saying, but they're thirsty, so give them a break. What shall we drink? And Moses cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which, when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. I don't understand that. No. So why does that happen? Why do do you know that? Do you know why the waters become sweet?
Yes.
Why?
Oh, because there's potential which is not available to you in any world, any identity you can imagine, right? So you can eat certain things, but you can't eat rocks. Cows can eat grass, but they can't eat sugar or whatever. So it's like all beings have potential which is attributed to them. And that potential which is attributed to them can be understood as something like sweet water which can be integrated. But there's also a type of water which is bitter. It's salt water. It's the water that is not available to you to drink. So it's potential that you don't have access to. So the idea of putting a tree, so a tree is a structure. It's a fractal structure. That's what a tree is. The idea of putting a tree into a structure in order to reveal the sweet waters.
Okay,
so you need a tree. You need a tree. You need something. You need a structure in order to know what is available to you. What waters are sweet and what waters are bitter.
Okay, and Moses is also cast here as the person who's capable of doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
And to make what's bitter sweet.
That's right.
Oh, and that's an echo of him being able to take his hand diseased and to make it whole again, I would presume, again.
It's related. It's definitely related to that. With the snake and the rod is in many ways related to this as well. But you have to think of them together. It's like...
But surely, no, I agree with all that, but surely the simple point is it's now drinkable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he takes... that shows him as a master of water again. Okay.
So it's the same water, right? I mean, that's made. It's like the water into wine, in Jesus' first miracle. But it's the same water that was bitter that becomes sweet. I think this is a very important thing that we're going to see again and again in the next chapters.
But you also have stories in Scripture where sweet waters become bitter, and so the best story is in the story of Ruth, where I forget her name before she named herself Mara, but she loses all her sons, and therefore her fruitfulness is gone. She doesn't have any sons, and so she said, from now on, call me Mara. I am the bitter waters. I am potential for no one. I don't have a husband. I don't have sons. I have become this bitter water. Yeah. So I'm saying, that's what I keep saying. I can't always tell you all the references I'm pulling in order to give you these stories, but I'll do it a few times so you can trust me when I say this. I'm not just pulling this out of my head.
But I think what's so fundamental here is that it's like the same event in our lives can be a cause either for resentment or for redemption. And it's not, you can be diagnosed with cancer and you can pray to God and God not take the cancer away, right? But that bitterness of casting oneself upon God's providence, upon the goodness of the reality, you might say, praying to understand it. It is amazing. I've seen this in my own
That's the spirit
life.
of Moses.
How that spirit of humility, saying, "What is this for?" Is that bitterness of the water can become sweet. Not that the pain or the difficulty is taken away, but that rather than resentment, it can become in a difficult way of, let's say.
Well, and Moses is properly guided by the pillars of fire and the pillar of cloud, and so that's another example of exactly what you're saying, is that if you're oriented in the proper manner toward meaning, in the highest sense, that even what's bitter in the desert can become sweet.
Yeah. It's not easy, but that's
definitely
what is revealed here, I think.
Right, okay.
I just want to read you, maybe before we go further, I just want to read you something from Proverbs, just to kind of hammer my point, and the relationship between this idea of the feminine and the relationship between the feminine and the potential. So in Proverbs 5:3, it talks about the strange woman, the problem of the woman that is too far from you, right? And it says, for the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil, but her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps take a hold on hell. So this image of this water, this bitter waters, which is also the bottom of the world, right? This deep, the place where no life is possible. The bottom of the sea, right? The bottom of the salt sea. And so the imagery is brought back here to kind of connect all these images together to understand the difference between the potential that is available to you and the potential which is dangerous and deadly and related to death.
You know, I don't want to get a contrarian voice, but I think we have to start with the straightforward and the historical. In other words, God is bringing to birth a nation. And again, Dennis, you come in, as the Jews, as I read it, before we get to the covenant, well, we've had the liberation, Exodus, the deliverance, that's number one. We're getting to the covenant, the law, and eventually to the worship and the tabernacle. But we've got this little bit in between. And there are three incidents. One, they need necessities of food, drink, and food. You have the water and manna. Two, they need some administration. You have Moses' father-in-law coming in to tell him to delegate and so on. And then three, they have to learn to fight an enemy. And so you have these three very basic things put in place, the necessities, as it were, and then they're given the covenant and the law. And I think you have to start with a very simple,
So
straightforward.
you see that as part of the assembling of the new order at the most basic level.
Yeah, start there with the history and the basics of it, and then you see the rich, deep meaning.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to
They're not exclusive, I think.
No,
Yeah, they're
not
two.
at all.
Yeah.
No.